What's up everybody, Demon back. Welcome to a brand new video. Today this is Godzilla-Thon episode 30. This is the 10th week in a row that Godzilla-Thon has consistently come out on Wednesday. Well, technically last week was an off week because it was Mothra-Thon and didn't actually come out on Wednesday, but this is the 10th week in a row that I've done one of these reviews, so I count that as a win for myself. I don't know if I was able to do that last time. I feel like I was pretty successful at doing consistently towards the end there of Godzilla-Thon, but once I took hiatus between King Ghidorah and Mothra, it certainly felt very long for me, and so it's fun to be doing these reviews again. And I know it's just like, why are you talking about this? Because we're 30 episodes in, so this is technically 30 weeks of Godzilla-Thon had I been doing this consistently in order. And actually this would be 31 because I did take a week off to do the Mothra review. Also, a lot of you guys were questioning about Mothra-Thon. Yes, Mothra-Thon will be happening, but it'll be happening after King Kong-a-Thon. I will definitely be doing, I'm super excited for that one because it's going to be short. Super excited for King Kong-a-Thon. A lot of you guys were like, what other reviews do you have planned? What other review series? I will be doing a Gamera-Thon, and probably, because I'm inspired by Adam Noyce, I'll probably do an Ishiro Honda-Thon of all the Ishiro Honda movies that I haven't up to that point reviewed. Maybe it'll just be a Showa-a-thon, I guess, because there's a lot of Ishiro Honda movies in the Showa series, of course, but there are also a lot of non-Ishiro Honda movies in the Showa era of giant monster movies in Japan and tokusatsu, so maybe I'll review those. I'm not totally sure. We'll just have to see how it all goes down. But for this time, we're going to be doing episode 30 of Godzilla-Thon. That one will be for Godzilla X Mechagodzilla, popular American title Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. And before we begin here, I'm going to bash my DVD really fast. I'm not sure what DVD this is. It's a Columbia TriStar home entertainment release of the movie. Oh my lord, is the subtitles terrible. Like, there's a lot of the time in the movie when the subtitles aren't there, and I'm sitting there racking my brain trying to figure out what they said, trying to like translate. Half the time in the movie I had to bounce back and forth between the English and Japanese dubs because at a certain point it just got annoying having to sit there and like pause it and try and figure out what they just said in Japanese. So I realized, oh, I can quickly go switch between the two versions of the movie. And you might just say, well, if it's that much of a hassle, why not watch the English dub? Because I'm trying to give the authentic review here. I don't want to like watch the cheesy version of it, the run-down version of it. Well, actually, the Millennium dubs aren't bad. They just get a little annoying because they reuse the same voice actors, and they only had like 5 voice actors to work with. So all the characters in all the Millennium movies are played by the same voice actors, I think with the exception of Final Wars, probably. But I didn't want to bother with that, so I just watched the Japanese dub, and I bounced back and forth between the two when needed. The movie starts out with a pretty brilliant military montage, which establishes pretty much the force that's going up against Godzilla in this movie, because this is a military against Godzilla movie, not a Kaiju against Godzilla movie, even though Mechagodzilla can be considered a Kaiju by some fans. Although it's Kiryu, it's a cyborg, so this one a little bit is a little bit more of a Kaiju than the other Mechagodzillas. However, I still don't consider him that. I just consider him a mech. So, as per usual in these Godzilla and Mothra movies, funny enough, we start out with a typhoon hitting Japan. Now, Godzilla makes landfall during this typhoon, and this was always something that was very memorable for me as a kid, was this scene of Godzilla just rising up in the background behind this news reporter. It was awesome. There's also a lot of shots in this movie where water will just come rising up. It'll be like a huge geyser of water, and then when the water falls back down, Godzilla's suddenly revealed in it. That was always something that stuck out to me as a kid. Watching it again, it doesn't make too much sense, and I did always nitpick that as a little kid. Like, wouldn't it just be cooler if Godzilla just rose up out of the water? I was always a fan of the way he comes out of the water in the 98 movie as a kid, so when I watched this one, I was like, it's cool and all, but it doesn't make too much sense. And even still, when I watch it, it's like, yeah, why is the water all fly up out of the air? It's like a big geyser effect that he has, but it doesn't make sense, but it looks cool. I guess that's all that matters, is that it looks cool. So I was actually pretty surprised by the fact that the first 30 minutes of this movie takes place in the year 1999. It doesn't even take place in 2002 or 3 when the movie is set. Now, at this point, Godzilla's design is a perfected version of his Godzilla 2000 design. It is no longer green, it is now the charcoal gray that I know and I love, and it is also just a super awesome version of that Godzilla 2000 design. He has a lot of similarities to that design. He has the neck frills, the spiky neck frills. He has the very long, very sharp dorsal fins, the very long tail. He has the similar face with the cat-like structure. But this one is just the ultimate version of that. Like, I hate the Godzilla Millennium 2000 design. This design, though, this design, I'm a fan of this one, which is surprising because I didn't really remember liking it as a kid. Like when I went into this movie, I remembered Godzilla looks alright in this movie, and then I watched it and I was like, oh man, he looks awesome. This is definitely not one of my top favorite Godzilla's designs. I'm a sucker for the Showa era, and I also really do love the Heisei design, as you guys all know. 89 and 74 and 64 are all my favorites. But this movie is a good one. It's up there. He looks awesome. The Final Wars design, ooh, we'll get there. It's awesome. Love it. So Godzilla looks great in this movie. However, he is a bit small. And I want to highlight this before I forget. The animatronics in the face have come a long way. Back in the Showa era, no facial expression at all. He just same blank stare all the time. Occasionally, sometimes you'd have the eyelids closed, but they moved all slow and clunky. In the Heisei era, they did a lot with the animatronics in the face. They made it look very good. I wouldn't say that it looks convincing in 85 or 84, and it doesn't look great in some of the movies, but once you get to Destroya, there's a lot of great facial work in the animatronics. He's got the cheek movements, he can blink now, he has a little bit of expression, but here in this movie, Godzilla can do a lot. Like, he can wince, he can do so much that he's never been able to do in the face before, and it's awesome because thinking about it from a practical standpoint, this Godzilla's face is a lot slimmer than the other Godzillas were. The Heisei Godzilla had a really bulky face. This Godzilla is really long and thin, meaning that they had to pack those animatronics into a very long and thin skull. I just find that very cool, and this could be also puppet work, lends itself to that, but for the most part, I do believe it's animatronics, and it just looks very convincing and very, very impressive. But like I said, Godzilla is a bit small in this movie. He doesn't tower over things like I'd like him to. In fact, this very first scene takes place in the village, but you can't tell it's a village because it's so high up on his legs. Like, all the little buildings are high up on his legs. It's like Godzilla walking through your neighborhood and your house is the size of his knee. It doesn't give him that much of a menacing feel, as in Shin Godzilla, he's kicking buildings all around. He is huge in that movie. I don't know. I've always been a kind of a fan of when Godzilla's bigger than his surroundings, like a lot bigger than his surroundings. So this movie, it kind of takes me off guard because he is very small compared to his modern incarnations and his Heisei incarnation. In the Showa era, he was the same height as he is now, but it wasn't noticeable because the buildings around him were so small. Now, he's the same height as he was in the Showa era, which I like the continuity carryover. However, he just doesn't have the same menacing feel as he did back then. So the military attacks Godzilla, and he's not damaged by tanks. So they implement some masers, the weapons used in War of the Gargantuas, against him. Godzilla's actually hurt and a little bit aggravated by this, so he uses the atomic breath on a mountain, knocking down some rocks. In the commotion, an SUV full of soldiers is trying to escape the situation when a maser tank, piloted by our main character, starts rotating to get out of there, and the rotation winds up knocking the truck right off the cliff, and the truck rolls down right under Godzilla's foot, where he steps on the truck and kills a whole bunch of soldiers. The scene ends with the silhouette of Godzilla being struck by lightning, and it is absolutely awesome. This movie is full of great visual and cast references to past movies, as well as some other references which are direct references to previous Showa movies. This I've always seen as an Easter egg to the Godzilla X Mechagodzilla scene in the very original movie in 1974 when Godzilla is being struck by lightning all around him. And there are numerous other throwbacks to other movies in this, as well as, like I said, a lot of returning cast members. It makes this movie feel a little bit more for the fans because of that. Godzilla is identified on the news, and it's here we learn about this universe's continuity. The history has Godzilla attack in 1954, as we learn from the Prime Minister. I wrote down her name, but I'm not going to pretend to try and pronounce this, so I'll just say the Prime Minister. She basically reveals to us through a CGI flashback to the 1954 movie, Godzilla did die at the hands of Dr. Serizawa. However, unlike in the Showa and Heisei continuity, his bones were not disintegrated. Now, something that I find interesting is whenever this movie shows clips of the 1954 movie, it is a CGI recreation of Godzilla. It's not a clip from the movie. In fact, it's a recreation of what happens in those movies. I don't understand the choice on why they decided to do that. It's not like the old footage looks bad. It looks very impressive. The special effects still hold up. I think maybe it has something to do with the picture quality and the aspect ratio, but I still would have preferred the actual clips from the original movie. They could have chalked it up to something like, oh, you know, this was, I don't know, news footage or something stupid like that, just so that we could have the original footage back. I would have liked something like that because the CGI really throws me off. It doesn't look great, and it's always been noticeable to me. Even as a little kid, I always wondered, why does it look so weird in this movie? It's from the original, but why does it look so weird? However, I really do like the continuity, bringing back Godzilla's original 1954 design into this continuity, whereas in the other Millennium movie, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, they really did away with that and just had the design be the Mechagodzilla design from the start. We also learned that in 1961 Mothra attacked. There's definitely a reason why I watched Mothra. Now you can kind of see it, even though I spelled it out in the Mothra review why I watched it. Well, that'll be important next week, so let's move on. We also find out that in 1966, Sonda and Gyra, or at the very least Gyra, they don't actually talk about Sonda, but it's clips from War the Gargantuas attacked, so I'm just going to say in 1966, Sonda and Gyra fight to the death in this continuity, which is awesome. I love War the Gargantuas. If you guys saw my review of that, you know it's one of my top favorite movies of all times. I definitely love seeing it get some recognition here in the Millennium era of Godzilla. And this is where we find out that the Maser tanks were developed, and we also find out that the Maser tanks were kind of a spin on the atomic heat rays that they used against Mothra in Mothra. So it kind of goes from the atomic heat rays used in the original Mothra to the masers used in War of the Gargantuas to the masers used in this movie, which is a cool evolution of the military power in this Godzilla universe. And now to conclude the previous continuity, we find out Godzilla is back as of 1999. Akane, after the death of 6 or so soldiers, is transferred to the data room in punishment for her mistake in battle. She's the one who was responsible for piloting the Maser tank, and she's the one who the deaths of the soldiers are blamed on. I noticed when watching this movie that there's a lot of Shin Godzilla actors in here, so I guess that's just another reason why Shin Godzilla is so great, is because of how many actors it reuses from this Millennium era, as well as, you know, some returning from previous Heisei and stuff. A trilobite is cloned and turned into a cyborg by this guy called Mr. Yahara. Now, Mr. Yahara is recruited by the military to work for them. I like that scene because it's very awkward. They like, two guys just walk up to him and they go, "Hey, we're from the government," and then you just cut to him being like in the government, like in the military facility, learning about Godzilla's bones. So he joins a team of Japan's greatest scientists who are shown Godzilla's bones, Godzilla from the 54 movie that is, that were found in the Boza Peninsula. The Japanese government passes a law granting the construction of a Mechagodzilla. Akane is in full support of this plan. Yahara and his daughter Sarah talk a little bit about Mechagodzilla and the project, and they decide to take the job so Sarah can hang out with some baseball players. Yahara successfully gets the Godzilla bone cells to start dividing again. This provides some fresh DNA for him to start mapping. Sarah is upset that her mother didn't get this special treatment and get revived from the dead and turned into a cyborg, which, you know, that would be awesome and all, but yeah, that'd be kind of freaky too. A new prime minister is appointed, and again, I'm not going to pronounce his name, but he's pretty cool. He's straight down to business. I like this guy. I like the actor. He's been in the Millennium era. He will be in the Millennium era a bit more. I don't know if he returns in Shin Godzilla, but he definitely has one of those very familiar Godzilla faces, so I don't know if he was in the Heisei era or not, but he's definitely one of the actors that sticks out to me. There's a big montage that shows that even though Akane has been transferred to the data room, she still continues to train for combat. Mechagodzilla's construction is finished by 2003, so now we're back in present time, or technically the movie comes out in 2002, so the future, but either way. Mechagodzilla is called Kiryu in this universe. I don't know why they decided to change his name from Mechagodzilla. I guess Mechagodzilla is just too long to say. But as a little kid, I always refused to acknowledge him as Kiryu, and I always thought that was a dumb name, so I just called him Mechagodzilla 3. Even though as a little kid I had never seen Mechagodzilla 2 from the Heisei era, I still knew that there was that character. Akane is promoted to Kiryu pilot after they decide that her leave is done and that she can return back to work. The team is led by Colonel Togashi. It's probably a good thing he's not a major character because I definitely don't know how to pronounce his name. Hayama starts threatening Akane because his brother was killed as a result of her mistake in the past. There's a great training montage showing off just how badass Akane is, as she shows she's just as tough as all the men and can do everything that they can. She's got to be one of my favorite Godzilla protagonists. I don't remember if she has a prominent role next movie. Fingers crossed that she does, but if she doesn't, I'm going to be super disappointed. I've actually only seen Tokyo SOS a good 2 or 3 times, so I do not remember. But I did watch this movie so much as a little kid that she's always been one of those characters that's just been like one of the big Godzilla characters for me. She's also one of the few cases when I think a movie gets a female character right, because a lot of the times movies will try and get the female characters right, but it'll just force it down your throat to the point when you're like, okay, I get it. Women are just as cool as men. You can stop bagging on the men and trashing on those characters just so that the women look good, or you can stop forcing the women down our throats, like that kind of stuff. There's a lot of that nowadays in modern Hollywood, but if they would just watch this movie and be like, oh, let's just not acknowledge that she's a woman, make her awesome, it'll be perfect. Like, she's so cool, and they don't ever address that. That's the best thing about it. This is honestly one of my favorite female characters in all of movies and all of cinema, because they don't do anything wrong with her. There's nothing that I watch and I just go, oh my god, like, it just bugs me because they're trying to force some sort of political agenda on you or anything like that. They just wanted a cool character and they used her as the character. Anybody could have played this role. If this was a man and they just had the other role for Sarah's dad, a woman, that'd still make complete sense. There would be nothing wrong with that. Akane notices Sarah has something called sleeping grass, which still to this day I do not know if it's a real thing or not. Now, sleeping grass is a living grass that reacts to human touch, or I guess just touch of any kind, maybe? I'm not sure. But it'll like move when you touch it, and so Sarah has a special bond with it because she considers it to have the soul of her mother. Yahara hits on Akane, which is one of the subplots in the movie, is their relationship, and it doesn't really like go anywhere big, which is another thing I like, is that it's not a forced romance plot, but it's there. It's still in the background, and I do find it kind of funny, which I'm supposed to, because it's supposed to be a comic relief storyline. Hayama starts being a dick for no reason until Akane has to slam him down face first onto a table and send him packing. Kiryu's specs are ran through as we find out that Mechagodzilla has been completed. It turns out that Kiryu will run on a DNA computer and can be controlled both manually and remotely, which is a good thing that they bring this up now so that it doesn't take us off guard later. The downside to Kiryu is he only has 2 hours of charge before he has to go back for charging. But they can remotely charge him for longer fight durations on the spot, which makes it a little more realistic, but at the same time it's like, who cares? It doesn't really play a big role in the plot, so we really didn't need that. Kiryu's main weapon is something called the Absolute Zero Cannon. This is a cannon that shoots a big ice ray that freezes things to negative 273.17 degrees, presumably Celsius, they don't say, but it's Japan, so I think it's Celsius. Now that is incredibly cold. It freezes it down to a molecular level so that by the slightest vibration it can be destroyed entirely. But the downside to that is that it uses 40% of Kiryu's energy. Godzilla is spotted headed inland, and Kiryu is deployed. Godzilla lands in the Japanese SeaWorld. I don't know what it's called. It's Japanese SeaWorld. He lands at Japanese SeaWorld, and Kiryu attacks first. Again, this is like the 4th time Mechagodzilla's in a movie, and it's the 4th time Mechagodzilla attacks first. And Kiryu hits Godzilla with a ton of missiles and masers, which, first of all, I don't know what Godzilla's deal is, but he sees Kiryu land and he just goes completely still. Like, he's like, oh, I guess I'll just stand here and just get hit by these missiles. They don't even move that fast. Just step out of the way. I don't know. It bugs me because it's very awkward the way he just stands there. But he's hit with the masers, and those really do some damage to him. As Godzilla retreats, he roars, triggering the DNA computers to act as the 54 Godzilla as the 54 Godzilla's consciousness emerges for the first time. Godzilla leaves before anyone can use the Absolute Zero Cannon on him, and Kiryu's eyes turn red as Kiryu starts to attack Japan. Now Kiryu is acting under Godzilla 1954's will. Akane saves Hayama from a crashed plane, and Hayama's all like, I hate you, which is just dumb. I would have liked it more if Hayama was like, wow, you accidentally got my brother killed, but you purposely saved me. Now we're square. But he doesn't. He's just like, well, you suck. All the way up until the very end of the movie. Kiryu destroys a bunch of Japan. In fact, Kiryu destroys more in this one scene than Godzilla does in the entire movie. and then goes stationary after an epic and iconic shot where he walks straight through a building. It's awesome. There's this building that's like, I don't know, like 50 feet taller than him, and he walks straight through it, cutting a big hole straight in the middle of it. It reminds me of that shot from the Godzilla 1998 when there's that building that has the big hole cut out in the middle of that one. It reminds me of that, but Kiryu just walks straight through this building, but the structure's still standing around him. It's awesome. And then Kiryu goes stationary as his battery dies, and in my favorite shot of the entire movie, you see his eyes slowly start to shut off from red, and you see the sand and all the destroyed rubble on his face start to blow away in the wind as the sun sets in the background. It is gorgeous. That is something that I will never forget that shot. It's awesome. Turns out that the malfunction stems from Kiryu's connection to the Godzilla bones, and so Sarah freaks out about how Kiryu is being treated as something less than a life form, even though Kiryu has life, and that Godzilla and Kiryu should be friends. And it's, I don't know, it's about this time in the movie when we learn that the reason she's all like this is because her mother, an unborn sibling, died when she was a little child, when her mother was sick when she was pregnant, and both passed away. And I guess this just turned her into Morgan from The Walking Dead somehow.
All life is precious.
Godzilla shows back up, and there are lots of great menacing shots of him as he's making his way inland. Like a lot of shots of him blasting down planes, and then you see them falling in front of him on fire, and he's just slowly moving towards the camera. It's awesome. Godzilla destroys the Shinagawa district because this is a Godzilla movie, and the Shinagawa district of Tokyo cannot catch a break lately. Kiryu is dispatched, and Akane and Sarah become friends as Akane goes into battle. Godzilla attacks a hospital that Tashimori from 2 movies ago, aka Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, is working at. Now, it's not the same character, but it's the same actress. She has a lot of screen time considering she's a background character, so they definitely wanted to bring attention to the fact that it's the same actress. She's kind of the groundwork for Akane, as she was the first kind of prominent fighter female character in all of Godzilla, and now we have Akane who's one-upping her in every way. And it's at this point in the movie when I really realized that Godzilla X Mechagodzilla is almost a spiritual remake of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla has a similar plot with the female soldier who feels responsible for the death of some other soldiers, so she's trying to make up for it the whole movie. It's got a lot of science against Godzilla, and then it's got some fun monster fights at the end. I just think that Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla sucks in every single way, and this movie doesn't. Kiryu doesn't fly in this scene, but he does fall with style as he crashes right into Godzilla. I wonder how many people got that reference. Now the fight is on. There's a lot of monsters flying around through the air as one kaiju will smack the other one around. It's kind of awkward, and I know I just referred to Kiryu as a kaiju, even though earlier I said that Kiryu is not a kaiju. But it's kind of awkward because it's like they'll be fist fighting, and then Kiryu will slam Godzilla with something, and you'll see Godzilla's body just go flying across the screen, and it looks real bad. If they took away all the monsters flying through the air and just had them get knocked over into buildings, the movie would be a lot better in my opinion, because it'd have a lot less of the clunkiness in this final fight. In fact, that's the biggest thing that I have to ding this movie on, is the awkwardness of the fights because of that. I've never been a fan of having someone get hit and then fly through the air like that. Even in Terror of Mechagodzilla, when Titanosaurus launches Godzilla through the air, I thought it was pretty awkward and dumb. Kiryu holds the speed, strength, and agility advantage over Godzilla and is able to jump straight over Godzilla's body, which is pretty impressive considering how tall Godzilla is, even though he's, again, not as big as I'd like him to be. However, this isn't an even fight because Godzilla has the stamina, endurance, and the firepower. So the fight, like I said, is very even and back and forth. Akane is forced to combat Godzilla from inside Kiryu after Kiryu's connection to the jet control has been lost. Hayama sacrifices himself for Akane, but Akane still is able to save him using Kiryu at the very end. The Absolute Zero is used point blank on Godzilla, and both Godzilla and Kiryu barely survive. Kiryu is nearly entirely destroyed, missing both a hand, a portion of his face, a chunk of his chest, and a whole bunch of other pieces here and there. We find out that Kiryu will be repaired and used again. This is our first hint that there will be a sequel. Godzilla has a huge blast hole right in his chest, which leads to a pretty awesome Scar next movie, and Akane emerges safe and sound. After the ending credits, Kiryu is seen in repair. Akane opens up to Sarah and her father, saying that she'll take them out to dinner after all, which is a nice payoff to the relationship thing that we've had going on throughout the movie, and she salutes Mechagodzilla as the movie ends. The human cast in this movie is pretty good. I am a huge fan of Akane. Like I said, she's just one of those Godzilla characters that always stuck out to me, and I really like Hayama. He's pretty funny, and I think he carries a lot of his scenes fairly well. And I don't actually have a problem with Sarah, which is surprising because I'm not often a big fan of kids in kaiju movies. The kaiju stuff in this movie is absolutely awesome. The special effects are very well done, and the only thing that I dislike is having the monsters fly around through the air. The music is a big step up from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and it is also very memorable and very iconic. It's the same composer, and it reuses a lot of the same themes, which adds to the fact that Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is just a prototype for this movie, because this movie kind of perfects everything that movie does wrong. And also, it adds to the very little that movie does right. Like I said, the effects are very well done, and so I have to commend the movie for that. Overall, I wouldn't consider this one of the best Godzilla movies ever, however, I would consider it a very good one. This is a definite 8 out of 10 for me, and I think the only thing that holds it back is just my love and nostalgia for the Heisei and Showa era. This one's definitely one of my favorites right after GMK in the Millennium era. In fact, I think this one's my third favorite because Final Wars just holds a special place in my heart. We'll just have to see though, because I don't know much about Tokyo SOS, and I look forward to watching it next week. Alright guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you guys next time. D-Man, out.